I didn't see it.
If you aren't more careful, you'll sweep out everything in the shop.
I'll be careful.
Well, this is good. It's excellent. Mistress Silence Dogood. I've never heard of the woman. Have you?
No, sir.
Well, we'll print it in the next issue.
Oh, that's fine.
What?
I mean, the paper can always use a good article.
It was not long before Silence Dogood became a regular contributor to the New England Courant. As the articles attracted more and more attention, young Ben Franklin threw off his disguise and admitted that Mistress Dogood was his creation. However, one of the political articles, which had been printed by James Franklin, gave offense to the Boston authorities, and he was arrested and held in prison for a month. So, at the age of 17, Benjamin Franklin became the alleged publisher of the Courant. His efforts were considered excellent by many, but there were those who disliked him for what they considered a too satirical attitude. When James Franklin returned from prison, the brothers fought constantly.
Boys, this is no way to behave.
Well, you speak with him, Father. I can do nothing. He's too vain and arrogant.
You're James' apprentice, Benjamin. You must do as he says.
And if I don't want to, what then?
You must. You're indentured to me.
Then I will leave you. I'll work for someone else in Boston.
No, you won't. You'll stay here and do as I say. And don't you try leaving the city. I'll have the law bring you back.
James is right. No one else will give you work. Your place is here. Try to get along.
Under the strict apprenticeship laws of the time, Benjamin Franklin had to continue working for his brother or take the chance of running away from Boston. He sold some of his books for expense money and through a friend arranged passage on a sloop for New York. After a stop over there, he continued on to Philadelphia, where he had been given the name of a printer who might have some use for his services. He was a lonely and tired figure as he walked up Philadelphia's Market Street, and he never dreamed that the young girl who watched him from a doorway was Deborah Reed, and that someday she would be his wife. Soon after, Franklin was introduced to Samuel Keimer, a printer and publisher to whom he quickly proved his ability and was given a job.
Oh, Governor Keith. I mean, Your Excellency. I'm sorry.
No matter, young man.
Something I can do for you, sir?
I've been watching you for months, Franklin. I think you're quite clever.
Thank you, sir.
Too clever to waste your time building someone else's business. Have you ever thought of starting one of your own?
Many times, sir.
Money, eh?
Yes, sir. Printing equipment is expensive.
Supposing I knew a gentleman who could arrange to let you have the money. How would that appeal to you?
That would be wonderful, sir. If I had the opportunity, I know I could succeed.
I'm sure you could.
I would like to see this gentleman right away, sir. Who is he?
Me, Franklin. Me.
So Benjamin Franklin went to London to buy a press. But Governor Keith's promise of assistance was never kept. Franklin was forced to work in England until he could pay for his return to Philadelphia. Although he went back to his job with Samuel Keimer, he had not given up the idea of a business for himself. He saved his money, and 3 years later, the opportunity presented itself, and he purchased the Pennsylvania Gazette. Franklin was 24 when he married Deborah Reed, the girl who had observed his entrance into Philadelphia. Deborah was a conscientious woman and always made a good home for him.
Oh, Deborah. I didn't realize you were here.
Oh, Benjamin, you work so hard at the shop.
No man e'er was glorious who was not laborious.
I think you should relax when you're at home.
Dost thou love life? Then do not squander time, for such is the stuff life is made of.
You and your poor Richard. Is that what you're working on?
Yes, listen to this. Who is wise? He that learns from everyone. Who is powerful? He that governs his passions. Who is rich? He that is content. Who is that? Nobody.
When 46, Benjamin Franklin was already a wealthy man and had retired from business. Although now a noted civic leader and a member of the Assembly of Pennsylvania, He devoted much of his time to science.
Joking, Franklin. That jar will make electricity?
Electricity like lightning? You have the craziest notions.
Maybe. But I am of the opinion that lightning is electricity.
What do you call this thing?
It is a Leyden jar.
And what miracle will this perform?
Nothing much yet. But I'm sure it will be the basis of something that will become very useful to man.
It's another one of your wild ideas.
I wouldn't fool around with that. You might be stunned.
By this jar? With this wire and this...
If I may quote from poor Richard, being ignorant is not so much a shame as being unwilling to learn.
In that day, most people regarded lightning with superstitious terror. Firmly convinced that it was electricity, Franklin conducted an experiment with a kite.
Is it all out?
Not yet, Father. There, that's all we have.
That should be high enough.
You say lightning is electricity, but how can you be sure?
Nothing is sure, son.
But what makes you think you can feel electricity from just the kite?
From the pointed wire that I've built into it. You see, the wire will draw the electric fire.
Lightning, Father, look. Anything yet, Father?
Look,
What is it?
the twine. The loose filaments are standing out. It's electricity. Quick, that key I gave you.
What is it for?
The kite and twine are wet now, and it should conduct the electric fire freely. Watch. There you are, son. There's the proof. It is electricity.
Those fools will stop laughing at you now, Father. You were right.
Yes, but more important, my lightning rod will work too. Now there's no reason why every home can't be made safe from lightning.
In 1757, Franklin returned to London. This time not as a journeyman printer, but as the representative of Pennsylvania. He was eminently successful, and within 5 years became, in effect, spokesman for the American colonies in England. When the English Parliament proposed the Stamp Act in 1764, the colonies already taxed heavily to fight it. 2 years later, Franklin was called to present the colonists' view on this taxation.
No, gentlemen. They will never submit to this tax. They will never pay it.
Have you heard of the resolutions asserting the right of Parliament relating to America, including the power to tax the people there?
Yes, I've heard of such resolutions.
What will be the opinion of the Americans on those resolutions?
They will think them unconstitutional and unjust.
Wasn't it an opinion in America before 1763 that Parliament had no right to lay taxes and duties there?
I never heard any objection to the right of laying duties to regulate commerce. But a right to lay internal taxes was never supposed to be in Parliament, as we are not represented there.
Can anything less than a military force carry the Stamp Act into execution?
I do not see how a military force can be applied to that purpose.
Why may it not?
Well, suppose a military force were sent into America. They would find nobody in arms. What then are they to do? They cannot force a man to take stamps if he chooses to do without them. They will find no rebellion. They may, indeed, make one.
It was largely his testimony that determined the immediate repeal of the Stamp Act. After almost 2 decades of service to his country in London, Benjamin Franklin, satisfied that his usefulness there was at an end, set sail for Philadelphia. Upon reaching home, he was horrified to learn of the fighting at Concord and Lexington. And with the news of the actual outbreak of hostilities, he was no longer a peacemaker, but an ardent supporter of the war. Elected a delegate to the Continental Congress, he fought tirelessly for the American cause. He was elected the first Postmaster General and worked with Thomas Jefferson on the Declaration of Independence. In 1776, he set sail as a commissioner to France.
Dr. Benjamin Franklin.
Franklin's position in France was a very delicate one, for the French were not ready to take sides against Britain. But after more than a year of brilliant maneuvering, the Treaty of Amity and Commerce was signed. A victory as valuable to the United States as the winning of the Battle of Saratoga.
We have met many times before. You're looking well, Dr. Franklin.
Thank you. It's the climate of France. It pleases an old man.
Oh, old perhaps in years, but not in mind.
Thank you.
We in France, we sympathize with you in your war against England. Please firmly assure Congress in my friendship. I hope that our treaty will be for the good of the two nations. Mes compliments, messieurs.
Your Majesty can count on the gratitude of Congress and the faithful observance of the pledge we have made.
After 8 years in France, Franklin was one of the most talked about men in the world. He was loved by everyone.
Dr. Franklin, we grieve at your departure. We would like to have you stay with us.
I'm afraid I can't. I've petitioned Congress, I don't know how many times, asking them to recall me. And now, at last, I can go. I want to see my home again.
There is nothing that can change your mind.
Nothing. However, you will have a fine American representative.
Ah, Monsieur Jefferson, you're going to take Dr. Franklin's place?
No one can replace Dr. Franklin, sir. I am only his successor.
Franklin returned to Philadelphia in 1785. He served as governor of Pennsylvania and also as a delegate to the Constitutional Convention. His influence, constantly exerted in favor of cooperation and reasonable compromise, contributed strongly to the final agreement.
Gentlemen, order, please.
On the last day of the convention, the Constitution was read to the assemblage and was ready for the signing.
Gentlemen, I confess there are several parts of this Constitution which I do not at present approve. But I am not sure that I shall never approve them. For having lived long, I have experienced many instances of being obliged by better information or fuller consideration to change opinions, even on important subjects, which I once thought right, but found to be otherwise. It is, therefore, that the older I grow, the more apt I am to doubt my own judgment and to pay attention to the judgment of others. Sir, I cannot help expressing a wish that every member of the convention who may still have objections to it would, with me, doubt a little of his infallibility and to make manifest our unanimity, put his name to this instrument.
Benjamin Franklin, the grand old man of America, often described himself as simply B. Franklin, printer, but he was being extremely modest. His autobiography became the most widely read book of its kind. It was a book written by the self-made man for the middle-class man. It told anecdotes about his life as an apprentice, about his travels, about his first printing press, and he wrote almost half of the book in 1 week. As a scientist, he founded the American Philosophical Society. His inventions were numerous. among them the Franklin stove and the lightning rod. He founded the Pennsylvania militia, the first fire company, and a hospital. He founded the University of Pennsylvania and formed what was called the Library Company, which was the foundation of our present-day public library. Benjamin Franklin died in Philadelphia at the age of 84. He was buried beside his wife in the churchyard of Christ Church. It was Franklin's patience, fortitude, and self-sacrificing devotion to the cause of his country that made his services so valuable at one of the most critical periods of our nation's history. He will always be remembered for his inquiring mind and for the gallant role that he played in the struggle for American independence.